The voice at his ear was as tranquil as smoke, as ethereal as mist. But to Yun Chi's ears, every word was an ice pick piercing his heart, sending a chill through his entire body. The very blood in his veins seemed to freeze. What is he saying? What in the world is he saying? Even when first facing the supreme existence of the abyss, he had appeared so composed and nonchalant. But at this moment, he had to summon all his willpower just to suppress the shiver rising from beneath his skin. Still, his fingertips curled uncontrollably. What is he saying? It was Li Xiu's voice, echoing the very same astonishment that rang deep in Yun Chi's soul. Mist, Sovereign One? But the Mist Sovereign is clearly just a false entity you fabricated. So is he lying, or does a Mist Sovereign truly exist within the Sea of Fog? Yun Chi could not respond. That bone-deep chill coursed through him for a long time, from his spine to his limbs and bones, and into the depths of his soul. It nearly froze his entire soul sea, robbing him of the ability to think for several long moments. He did not hide his astonishment, because any living being who heard such a truth would have their perception of reality shattered and be utterly horrified, though what truly shocked him was not the truth itself, but the words Mist Sovereign. Mo Su turned his body, not looking at Yun Chi's shocked state. With a light wave of his hand, the space before them warped and shifted, and the paradise of the beyond too vanished from sight. The beings within the paradise of the beyond remained completely unaware, continuing to follow their predetermined fates and laws, exploring, forever existing within what they believed to be reality. Yun Chi finally found his voice, tinged with a deep sense of melancholy. When something has existed in one's perception from the very beginning, it becomes an accepted, inherent belief. Thus, no one ever questioned why the abyssal dust would spontaneously gather in the Sea of Fog, or why the abyssal beasts and abyssal ghouls never leave it. Indeed. Mo Su gazed into the emptiness before him and spoke faintly, and no one ever questions why living beings walk upright on the ground instead of hanging upside down from the sky. Nor does anyone question why their eyes can see the world and their ears can hear distant sounds. Yun Chi was once again reminded of what Kai Wao had said. The most terrifying thing is not the unknown, but being trapped by what one already knows. And yet, his greatest weapon in his scheme against the abyss was to exploit the inherent beliefs of its inhabitants. But without realizing it, even he himself had long been trapped in the invisible cage of his own established perceptions. When he, in the guise of the Mist Sovereign, had created the rumor to shake the faith in the Abyss Monarch IV, he had exploited the unexplained phenomena on the surface of the abyss. But at that time, he too had instinctively believed that the abyssal dust gathering in the Sea of Fog and the abyssal beasts residing there were simply their own natural laws, just as streams flow to the ocean and fish can only live in water. He had never considered, or rather, never dared to consider, that it was truly the result of some power's control. Yun Chi looked up at Mo Su, his expression a perfect blend of shock and curiosity. Everyone in the weaving dream realm was convinced that the Mist Sovereign was just a fabrication, a deliberate deception created by someone to stir up chaos. After all, he only appeared occasionally, and no one has ever seen his true form. I never imagined that he actually exists. He had never imagined it, never even considered it. He would have much rather believed that the Abyss Monarch like him was weaving a lie. Because the existence of the Mist Sovereign was, in itself, or rather should have been a lie he had crafted with his own hands. But while he had countless reasons to deceive Mo Su had no reason to deceive him. The prerequisite for deception is to have an ulterior motive. What could Mo Su possibly want from him? He struggled to maintain a rational fluctuation of emotions on the surface, but the turmoil in his heart was like a storm-tossed sea, refusing to calm. If a Mist Sovereign truly exists in this world, and if this Mist Sovereign is powerful enough to gather all the abyssal dust in the world and impose rules on all abyssal beasts and ghouls, then his power, no, I must focus on dealing with the current situation. I must not think about the Mist Sovereign and whatever lies behind him for now. I can't. Mo Su turned his gaze to Yun Chi, reading his unspoken words. You want to know about the Mist Sovereign? Yun Chi nodded, his tone filled with natural curiosity. Of course, I believe anyone in the world who heard such a truth would want to know what kind of being the Mist Sovereign is, and why he has never appeared before. However, since you once exchanged promises, I imagine it must involve secrets that cannot be known to outsiders. So I think it's better if I don't ask. My master also once said that in life, the less you know, the more at ease you live. A faint smile touched Mo Su's lips, gentle and warm. Yet within that gentleness, there seemed to be a hint of something indescribable, indulgence. He was reminded of the past, when his elder brother Naixuan would always look at him with a smile, patiently answering all his questions, no matter how strange, childish, or amusing they were. "I have never truly seen the Mist Sovereign," Mosu began softly, startling Yun Qi. Mosu turned his gaze forward again and continued slowly. "What I saw of the Mist Sovereign was no different from his current manifestation in the world. He was hidden within dense abyssal dust that neither sight nor senses could penetrate, presenting a distorted form and emitting an obscure, indecipherable voice, as well as an aura that was utterly alien, even to my understanding." Yun Qi. Mosu continued. "As a son of a creation god, I could easily bathe in the divine radiance of the various creation gods and feel the divine auras of the god race. And yet the aura emanating from that Mist Sovereign gave me an unprecedented sense of ethereality and illusion, and even a ridiculous feeling of transcendence, as if he were above the creation gods." Yun Qi's heart felt as if it had been violently squeezed, and a terrifying sense of suffocation instantly swept through his body. But it is impossible for a being to exist that surpasses the creation gods. Whether it was the sense of ethereality, illusion, or absurdity, they all pointed to one possibility. The Mist Sovereign is not a true being with a physical body, but rather the will of the abyss, self-generated from the endless abyssal dust of this world over a long period of evolution. He paused briefly before continuing. "At least as far as I am concerned, I can think of no other possibility. So that's how it is." Yun Qi nodded slowly in agreement. "A will born from the endless abyssal dust. No wonder it can gather all the dust in the world and impose laws upon the soulless abyssal beasts, gathering the abyssal dust into the sea of fog, allowing spaces for long-term survival to appear in the world, confining the abyssal beasts and ghouls to the sea of fog, allowing the living beings of the Pure Lands to live in peace. In that case, is this Mist Sovereign an extremely benevolent will?" Faced with this question whose answer seemed obvious, Mosu responded with a long silence. Yun Qi frowned, surprised. "Was I wrong?" Mosu shook his head slightly. "I simply cannot answer that question, because in my world the line between good and evil has long been blurred." Yun Qi too fell silent. His own perception of the boundary between good and evil was no longer as clear as it had been in his youth. "Has your master ever spoken to you of the lost artifacts of the devil race?" Mosu suddenly asked. Mosu bringing it up himself was a great surprise to Yun Qi. He recited their names directly: the Panaming Void-Piercing Mirror 5 and the Nemo Counter-Evolving Pearl 6. However, Master also said that the loss of these two devil artifacts was not made public back then. The only reason he knew was because your father, the God Emperor, told him. Mosu paid no mind to his latter words and said calmly, "Back then, Xiao Dai shielded me from a devastating blow, and we fell into the abyss of nothingness together. The abyssal dust of that era was far more terrifying than it is now. My bones were all shattered, and Xiao Dai was grievously wounded. Both the Panaming Void-Piercing Mirror and the Nemo Counter-Evolving Pearl were on the verge of collapse." Yun Qi held his breath, listening quietly. Naixuan's memory fragments had told him that it was a heaven-punishing strike from the ancestral sword that had sent Mosu and Pan Xiao Dai plummeting into the abyss. If not for the two devil artifacts blocking the blow, Mosu and Pan Xiao Dai would have surely perished on the spot. But the price was the near destruction of both artifacts. Although the Panaming Void-Piercing Mirror and the Nemo Counter-Evolving Pearl were not ranked among the 7 great profound heavenly treasures, they were the closest artifacts to that level in the world. Yet under a single strike from the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, they were almost shattered. The might of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword was truly terrifying. Relying on a demonic domain barely sustained by the fractured Panaming Void-Piercing Mirror, Xiao Dai and I managed to survive for a time. But the shattered mirror could not hold for long, and Xiao Dai had fallen into a slumber, having lost the will to live. Between heaven and earth there was only despair. A world of death, a lifeless lover, a broken barrier, a solitary self, such utter despair. "Lost the will to live," Yun Qi murmured subconsciously. Recalling the distant past, Mosu's voice was remarkably calm. "Just as I held Xiao Dai about to end my own life, I saw a distorted gray mist and heard the first voice of this world. He called himself the Lord of the Abyss, claiming he could repair my damaged devil artifacts and allow me to survive in this world for a long time. The price was to fulfill his desire. The time limit was 5 million years. Yun Chi's heart pounded violently once more. Unable to suppress his intense agitation, he asked, what was the desire he spoke of? Mosu was silent for a long time. As it concerned the promise between him and the Mist Sovereign, Yun Chi assumed it was a taboo topic and was about to change the subject when he heard Mosu say slowly, it involves my promise, and it involves Zio Dai, so I cannot speak of it in depth. But I can tell you that the place he desires is the same as mine. After a short pause, 4 words slowly escaped his lips, which were covered in a divine light. The eternal pure land, 7 buzz, something seemed to explode in Yun Chi's mind. The chill that had been coursing through his body vanished, replaced by a sense of emptiness, as if his body had suddenly disappeared. Since entering the abyss, he had used his special ability to control abyssal dust, exploited various cognitive biases, and seized every opportunity and stroke of luck with keen perception. In just a few short years, he had completed the initial layout of his plan to throw the abyss into chaos, secretly pulling the strings of fate for several of the great divine kingdoms. The eternal peace and balance of the 6 divine kingdoms meant their greatest worries had always been about succession, not survival or external threats, with the convergence of various factors. Although Yun Chi had been cautious and on edge every step of the way in the abyss, never allowing himself a moment's rest, his progress had been incredibly smooth overall. Even after setting foot on the Pure Lands, he had taken every step of his plan with absolute clarity, without any major deviations. But today, in this short span of time, his soul had been struck by several unprecedented massive blows. Amidst the ringing in his soul's sea, he heard Mosu's voice continuing to drift into his ears. At that time, I responded in a daze, like a drowning man instinctively grabbing a suddenly appeared straw. Then he fulfilled every word he had spoken. The terrifying abyssal dust rapidly receded, eventually concentrating in the center of the world to form the Sea of Fog. And so, pure lands began to appear one after another in a world that had once held only destruction. From then on, the living beings who fell into the abyss of nothingness and survived had a place to exist. And I, following the ways of a monarch that I had learned from many worlds, declared myself the world's creator and proclaimed myself the Abyss Monarch, until this very moment. The Abyss Monarch of that time and the Abyss Monarch of today, though the same person, were also completely different. So many years of vicissitudes and solitude were enough to thoroughly change a person's temperament and transform their soul. So, Yun Chi heard his own voice. Back then, the Mist Sovereign really repaired the Panaming void-piercing mirror and the Nemo counter-evolving pearl. Those were devil artifacts on the level of profound heavenly treasures. Mosu said yes, not only did he repair them, he also modified them. Modified? Yun Chi exclaimed in shock, but this time the Abyss Monarch did not respond, instead calmly changing the subject. Everything he did was not without a price, and that price was a 5 million-year slumber. He said that the power he lost would require 5 million years of slumber to recover. During these 5 million years, he would have no consciousness, and this world would be mine to rule as I pleased. But if after 5 million years, when he awoke, I had not fulfilled my promise, he would take back everything he had given and inflict upon me the cruelest punishment. But I never expected that after only 3 million years, he would already awaken. Yun Chi stared fixedly at the Abyss Monarch, and suddenly the heavy pressure on his heart and the turmoil in his soul's sea receded like a tide. A 5 million-year slumber, and from the creation of the world to the present, only 3 million years have passed in the abyssal world at most. That means the Mist Sovereign should still be asleep for another 2 million years. Damn 8, that scared the hell out of me. Yun Chi cursed fiercely in his heart, feeling a sense of exhaustion as if he had just survived a catastrophe. According to Li Xiu, the laws of time in the abyssal world were already on the verge of collapse. When that happened, the entire abyssal world would implode, and might even backlash into the world of the living. Forget 2 million years, the abyssal world would likely collapse completely within 20,000 years. At that time, the Mist Sovereign would simply disintegrate in his sleep. Not only would he pose no threat now, he probably wouldn't even have a chance to wake up. Therefore, even if a Mist Sovereign truly existed in this world, it was a sleeping one, a being destined never to see the day of his awakening. Thus, he was still this world's one and only Mist Sovereign. The path he needed to walk was still the same as before,